Hey guys, my name is Mike. I used to be the budget audiophile. I had about 2,400 subscribers on my YouTube channel. I reviewed hi-fi and stereo equipment, turntables, that sort of thing. And for those familiar with that channel and my work and videos through that channel, I'm sorry to disappoint. Sorry I had to delete it, but I did. Eventually I'm going to do a video upcoming about why that happened and the reasons behind that. But in the meantime, we are now live again with the Hi-Fi Maven, which is basically going to be the same thing, although I do want to have more of a focus on music instead of the equipment that plays the music. Of course, there will be equipment reviews to begin with, or a smattering here and there. It's kind of neat to be starting from scratch again. You know, I had about 2,400 subscribers with the budget audiophile, and it felt like something I worked towards over the period of about a year and a half. And while that isn't a whole lot of subscribers, for me it was, and I was getting new subscribers all the time. So it was kind of neat that people liked what I had to say, and they enjoyed watching my content, and they enjoyed hearing what I had to say. Towards the end of the budget audiophile, so last summer, I was sent the Iphono 3 Black Label Phono stage. New at the time from Hi-Fi Audio, and I recorded a video for it, and I never put it out because, of course, the deletion of the budget audio file. So I'm going to do that now. Again, I will be in an upcoming video talking about what happened to the budget audio file and sort of the process of all of that. But in the meantime, enjoy my review of the Iphono 3 Black Label.
Hey guys, it is the budget audiophile, and today we're going to be checking out the Iphono 3 Black Label Phono stage from Hi-Fi Audio. So all right, so looking around it, of course, we've got the top plate here, and this basically shares the same overall physical dimensions and shape as a lot of Hi-Fi products, of course, and it also shares the same shape and dimensions as the older Iphono 2. A little bit different setup with the dip switches and also configuration of obviously the interior circuit board. But along the top panel we've got our power indicator, our Class A tube state indicator, and our play indicator. Now basically when you plug this thing in, it kind of warms up for a little bit. The Class A as well as the power will illuminate, and then with the play indicator, it'll take a few seconds, maybe 20 seconds or so to fully come on, and then you're ready to sort of listen to music. Around the front here, we've got our power switch, our curve setting. At the top, we have Columbia. In the middle, we have RIAA, and then at the bottom, we have Decca. Now, Columbia and Decca are their own thing. RIAA, however, that's the standard one, but on the bottom, using these center dip switches here, you can configure that to enhanced RIAA, standard RIAA with a subsonic filter, standard RIAA, and then enhanced RIAA with the subsonic filter. And speaking of that, I've noticed, to me, I have played around with it. I want to say I have some older Columbia records that were recorded in the late 50s, some classical pieces and things. And I've tried playing around with it. To me, it kind of seems like a tone control, kind of like some integrated amps where they have a loudness button, or they have that mid band, like that Marantz 8006, or it has that mid-level tone control. And that's kind of how I get the impression when I listen to the RIAA. It sounds sort of standard, I guess, if that makes sense. When I flip it to Columbia or I flip it to Decca on the same track, and of course you can do that while you're listening, I noticed that different parts of the frequency spectrum seem to be emphasized a little bit more. It seems like you got a little bit more light in the mid-range, or the treble became a bit brighter perhaps, or the bass kind of got rolled off a little bit more. So it does work, it does do something, and whether or not that's applicable to your situation, hard to say. I will say I will follow Michael Framer's advice, which on Stereophile, he wrote a column for back in about 2010 or 11, and he talked about his view of curves and him talking to numerous industry record producers that were working during that time period of the switch, I suppose, from one curve to another, and they said that most everything that they could recall was recorded in the standard RIAA. So in any case, we've got our output here as well. Around this side, we've got our moving coil input, as well as our grounding lug and our moving magnet input. Along the bottom are our dip switches for setting capacitance for moving magnet, our moving coil ohm load, which runs from 22 ohm on up to 1000 ohm, so a lot of selection there. And of course, not only are these for the curve settings as well, but they're also for gain settings too. A lot of options here. I will admit, as much as I wanted to mess with the moving coil, I didn't have an opportunity to pick up a moving coil cartridge. It was something I was going to do. I was going to pick up a Quintet Red from Ortofone, but decided not to. So in any case, all my observations are using the moving magnet, which, speaking of that, I've left it on the 100 picofarads as well as the 42 moving coil gain setting. Other than that, I mean, that is basically it. Build quality is what I've come to expect from Ifi Audio, meaning it's good quality. You do get some accessories in the box, and I'll link my unboxing video down below. It comes with this thing, which this is actually a two-prong thing. You have this, which is, I think, sort of a grounding adapter. I guess if you had a turntable that had like a banana spade or a larger grounding lug, you could use this to adapt it. Of course, it also adapts this piece as well, this little Iec Grounding Jack. And basically what you do is you hook this up to the grounding post here, and then you can run a standard Iec cable to an outlet. And so you can have a separate ground for the phono stage. I'm imagining the idea is that it reduces background noise, makes it a little bit quieter, and I can attest to the fact that it does work. When you plug this thing in and you use it, and it looks kind of funny having 15 wires hanging off of this thing, but it does work. It does seem to result in a quieter background. You do get a greater sense of blackness to the sound. Things seem more depth as a result. Also, I got mine with two power supplies in the box. So in the box it had this, which this is the standard Ipower, Ifi Audio Ipower power supply, which works well, functions great. This is their classic power supply that was designed, or is designed, as sort of an upgrade power supply for example, like maybe a DAC perhaps, or you could power like a shit Manny with it, that sort of thing. If you wanted something kind of as an upgrade, perhaps to reduce, noise and maybe have a little bit better power filtering. And it works fine, it works well. However, they sent along as well the Ipower X, which is supposedly their updated version of the older Ipower. It's designed to be even built to a better standard, even have better filtering, better noise reduction, those sorts of things. And I can attest when using these two, this one sounds good, works well, functions great. But when you switch to the Ipower X, you do notice a reduction in, just like using this, you do notice a reduction in background noise. Things seem to be quieter. Also, dynamic contrast seem to happen better. I have, for whatever reason, been listening to a lot of classical records as of late. And of course, classical music, by its very nature and the way it's recorded, it does tend to be quite dynamic. And so the difference between loud and soft seems way more apparent and way more sort of flowy, I guess we can say, using the Ipower X versus the standard Ipower. Now, I got mine sent, of course, from Ifi Audio as a demo unit, and it contained both power supplies. If you were to buy this thing from Music Direct, for example, or Crutchfield or something like that, or maybe your local hi-fi dealer perhaps, I'm not sure if it would come with the Ipower X. I don't know if this was included with it. Perhaps you would get this setup here, this is what you'd receive, or you may just receive this setup, which in and of itself is fine, in which case you could buy this as an upgraded power supply, and trust me when I say it does make a difference and it does work. I think these run for about $75 or so, maybe $100 bucks there. And if you did have to buy that as an upgrade, I do think it is a worthwhile upgrade. So anyway, guys, let's turn you around and let's talk about sound quality. All right, guys, so what do I think about the Iphono 3 Black Label from Ifi. Well, a big part of it really comes down to flow. And it's something that becomes more readily apparent in direct comparison to something like the Manny, in my opinion. The Manny is really good at having this sense of drive, this sense of rhythm, this sense of flow, and portraying basically exactly what you hear on the record is exactly what's coming out of the speakers. There doesn't seem to be any direct emphasis there. It just seems to take what's there and spit it out of the speakers. However, it seems to also take everything off the record, including surface noise, which in and of itself, for a budget piece, it's probably the best phono stage you're liable to find, in my opinion, under $500. However, when you go to something like the Iphono 3, and it's certainly that next step up, and I am of the mind you do have to spend something around the Iphono 3's price tag to better it, to better the Manny. You do get this same sense of flow, this same sense of what's on the record is exactly what's coming out of the speakers, but you get a reduction in surface noise, you get much quieter backgrounds, and everything just becomes more palpable as a result. Bass tremendously benefits from that. And especially when combined with the Iec grounding adapter and the upgraded Ipower X power supply, it just is a magical phono stage. And I don't want to use hyperbole here, but it's probably the best phono stage I've heard. You know, one of the things I found is with the Riga ELEX-R, that was probably the best phono stage I'd heard up to that point. And getting the Iphono 3, again, it sort of betters them all. It has that great sense of flow, that great sense of drive. Also as a positive, but it could be a con to some people. To me, in my opinion, it offers a great sense of neutrality. It doesn't seem to emphasize any one single part of the frequency spectrum, really highlight any area. You don't feel like the bass is heavy. Of course, if the bass needs to be heavy in the song, it is. If you don't feel like the mid-range is real lush and colorful, of course, if it needs to be, it is. You don't feel like the treble's overemphasized. Again, though, if it needs to be, it is. But overall, it's just a fantastic piece. The biggest thing that I really liked about it was just that sense of flow, again, that quietness to the sound. You know, on my Riga ELEX-R video, somebody commented, asked the question, well, how does one phono stage take and is quieter regarding surface noise and clicks and pops and things than another? And honestly, I could not answer that question. It was something I couldn't answer because, well, I can't. I'm a technical-minded person. I can kind of imagine most things. However, with that, I don't know. Obviously, the way they design it, maybe the parts quality involved, the circuit layout, how well the power supply is isolated or lack thereof. It's probably a combination of all those things that contribute to that. And in the case, again, of the Ipower X, you get this huge sense of quiet, which contributes to better bass definition. It's there, it's palpable, it's real. You listen to the double bass, you listen to Stan Getz and Raul Gilberto, Girl from Ipanema, which I've got a really nice Japanese pressing of that. The double bass is in the background, and you can feel that double bass, and you can feel it, and you can hear it, and it's there, and it's real, or at least it sounds real. And you can feel those lower registers tremendously well. And they feel fleshed out in space. They don't feel constricted. They don't feel cut off or reduced as a result of the phono stages. Everything feels like it's there. In the bass region. Mid-range, again, it tends to be a neutral product in my opinion. It doesn't seem to overemphasize the mid-range. Again, using that sort of curve switch, you can kind of adjust it a little bit. So while the regular RIAA, the enhanced and things like that, I didn't really notice much of a difference with those, I'll be honest with you. With most of my records, it's sort of all kind of, whether you use the enhanced or the regular standard RIAA, it kind of all, to me, sort of sounded very similar in that respect. However, when you switch to the Columbia specifically the Columbia. On a lot of records, the mid-range became a bit more lush. It seemed to have a bit more burnish to it, a bit more glow in the mid-range, if that makes sense. Things seemed a bit more colorful. When you switch back to the RIAA, it kind of flattened out a bit, but not to its detriment, though. It certainly wasn't a con, in my opinion. More so it offers, again, like a tone control, as I mentioned. That said, treble going to that, sort of an equal thing. Switching to the Decca, in my opinion, you got this sense of the treble kind of having a similar sort of boost a little bit, but not really a boost. It just seemed like there was more glow there. Like, you know, drums and high frequency instruments and cymbals and things seem to take on a bit more sparkle to them. And you got a little more flattening in the mid-range, but the treble seemed to be, again, not really boosted, just a bit more glow there. But overall, the IRAA is, or RIAA, I'll keep messing that up. But anyway, that definitely seemed to be the most linear, the most neutral sounding of the curves. And ultimately, again, it's probably the best phono stage I've ever heard. Sound staging, especially with the quietness, and that is something I cannot stress enough, as how quiet this thing is. You get this huge sense of, let's say you're listening to the Manny, okay? And let's say you're listening to The Girl from Ipanema, specifically that song. No, hold on, Corcovado. You're listening to Corcovado. And Astrad Gilberto is on the left channel, and I want to say the piano's on the right, and the double bass is kind of in the center, kind of sort of thereabouts. I forget, I want to say there's trumpets in that. Anyway, it's kind of spaced out. With the Manny, you can see each individual piece, but they seem to exist as a plane of things, sort of a wall of sound kind of setup. When you switch to the Iphono 3, that space between the individual instruments and Astrad becomes way more glaring. Not glaring in a negative respect, but glaring in the sense that you can see it more accurately. Because that noise dropped, you can see that picture, that imaging becomes way more enhanced. And as a result, it's just fantastic. Fantastic. It also presents a very lovely center image, which is something I don't talk about a whole lot, but you know, some products, and not specifically phono stages, but in general, amps do it. I've heard speakers do it with several of my speaker videos, where you have speakers that can have this sense of the music's coming outside, you know, or things seem to be shifted one way or the other. Amps, I've heard, do that as well. But this seems to present a very good locked center image when it needs to be. It doesn't falter or flow in any direction. And, you know, as a result, it contributes to this perception of left to right being distinct and being very, very locked in space without it drifting at all, which is really, really good. And that's about it. You know, again, I think for the money, it's your options, I don't want to say are limited, but around that price, you have the KC Vibe from Sutherland, which gets huge marks, high marks, tremendous marks. Whether that's a better phono stage, I couldn't say. I know people almost unanimously love the KC Vibe from Sutherland, from what I've read about it. And there are some other options as well. You have the Layman Audio Black Cube, and I believe you can get the SE version of that with the upgraded power supply for around that same money. You have some options from Project Audio. You can get the the Phono Box RS, which is supposed to be a high-end phono stage from Project. A little bit more money, you could get the EAT. What's it called? I forget what it's called. But yeah, there are definitely some options around that price, but I think for my money, the Iphono 3 would be totally where it's at. With the upgraded power supply, with the additional ability for huge amounts of loading, capacitance, the adjustable curves are kind of really cool. You know, That's it. Plus, it's in a nice form factor. It's not some huge box you got to contend with. It's a nice small something you can kind of put behind, you know, you have your turntable on a shelf or something, you can kind of set it beside it, and it's not going to take up a whole lot of room. It's a very, very lovely package, and Ifi Audio has done a tremendous job with it, and I want to say I'm thankful to them for sending it to me. It's been a wonderful experience, and it's something, as I mentioned in the unboxing, it's one of the products that I wanted to initially review. So at the time they contacted me about getting products and reviewing stuff for them, you know, one of the things I wanted to review was the Iphono 2. But they said, oh man, we don't have that anymore. We're kind of phasing it out, blah, blah, blah. We're going to release a successor. But it took long enough, but I think they hit it out of the park with the Iphono 3. You know, so anyway, that's it for now. Again, I am going to be transitioning my channel to more of a music review video. And I've got the format once a week. We're going to do it on Sundays. I'm going to show you guys around my vinyl setup, show you guys around the records I listen to, and go through my collection. I've been expanding my classical collection, my jazz collection, my 80s collection. You gotta have an 80s collection, very, very important. You can't call yourself a vinyl enthusiast unless you have yourself an 80s collection. Anyway, that's it for now. Stay tuned and we'll keep you solid.